Let's talk about Baltimore's defense, dominant last season when they became the first team since the merger to lead the NFL in scoring, sacks, and takeaways. But they've undergone significant changes this offseason, beginning with former defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. He left to become the Seahawks head coach. Your D-line coach, Anthony Weaver, he's gone. Your DB coach, Denard Wilson, he's gone too. Everybody moving out and moving up, as Baltimore also lost key contributors. Patrick Queen is gone, Jadeveon Clowney, Geno Stone. Oh my, Booger. So the Ravens promoted 31-year-old Zach Orr to be their new defensive coordinator. So they do go in-house. But boy, are they missing a lot of pieces. How concerned are you?
Well, typically you'd be concerned, especially in a league that's built off talent. But there's something in that building called play like a Raven. And there's a standard and a status in which everybody in that building is held to. When you look at, when you understand how they're going to do things, even though they're missing guys, you got Matabike that's going to be up there. He's going to lead the charge up front, a guy who they paid. They're going to play because they have a certain mentality that you have to have inside that building. I do understand that Mike McDonald is gone, but as long as they can get their secondary to play to a higher level, I have no doubt that this defensive unit is going to continue to play. They may not have some of the names that we're used to, Patrick Queen and some of the others, but I think that building, more than any other building outside of maybe Pittsburgh in the National Football League, you don't concern yourself with the names. You concern yourself because you know the coaching staff is going to get them to play a certain way, Lewis.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this, though. Look, John Harbaugh told us last year he thought that on the defensive side of the football, he had multiple head coaching candidates, all right? And so obviously Mike McDonald gets one. He thought Zach Orr was going to be a future head coach. He thinks Anthony Weaver, who's the new DC down in Miami, should be a head coach. Denard Wilson, who's now the DC in Tennessee, who is the passing game coordinator, is an absolute stud. He will be a head coach here soon, too, in the next 2-3 years. But they still do have some fantastic players. Look, in the secondary, they have Kyle Hamilton, who's already one of the best safeties in the league. And they drafted a guy in the first round out of Clemson this year named Nate Wiggins, who I think, you know, pound for pound with his size, his length, and his speed, when you talk about play like a Raven, that's what he does. He has got blazing speed, great ball skills, great short area quickness and finishing ability. And he's a guy who just competes like just exactly the way you would expect Baltimore Raven type defensive backs to compete. So yeah, I'm concerned because there's been a huge brain, you know, kind of like football intelligence brain drain kind of out of Baltimore. But John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he'll make it work.
I think that's the key thing, right? Because there's turnover in the personnel side of it too, right? The player personnel side. 3 new offensive linemen as starters this year, and on the defensive side, you lose Patrick Queen, you lose Geno Stone. You know, the Ravens are very good at bringing people into their culture and getting them to play the way they want them to play. The other thing they're very good at is sort of late window free agency. It seems like they're always able to find an edge rusher or two kind of kicking around on the market in, like, you know, May, June, July. So keep an eye out for the Ravens to continue to be active to maybe sign some veterans to fill in some of those holes.
And Justin Fields poured cold water on the idea that he could be a kick returner for the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying earlier this week that it was funny to him how viral comments from teammate Jaylen Warren went when Warren brought up the time that special teams coach Danny Smith suggested they could use the quarterback as a kick returner. Fields said that's not what he's in Pittsburgh to do, and Smith was just using him as an example of guys who could be asked to do non-traditional things for this team. There is one way, though, that Fields could be used in a non-traditional role, and that's perhaps in a 2-quarterback system. Fellow quarterback Russell Wilson said that he would welcome adding Fields in a 2-quarterback system because having 2 dynamic playmakers and quarterbacks is a good thing, and he said it could strike fear into the heart of a lot of defenses. The quarterbacks are already using a 2-quarterback system well, taking their offensive line out to dinner at the Capitol Grill together a couple weeks ago.
I love that. Bug, I imagine what you just said in our last segment, you would have loved that as well and ordered a nice big juicy hamburger. But this 2-quarterback system, does this whet your appetite at all? What do you think when you hear that about Pittsburgh?
Yeah, no, not at all, Hannah. I'm not in favor of the 2-quarterback system. Now, we haven't seen it much in the National Football League. I saw it in college football with Steve Spurrier shuffling quarterbacks in and out. It didn't work well then. I just think that position is one of leadership and one of being able to command the huddle, and having a guy go in and out, I don't think it's going to work. Now, if you're going to create a small package for, say, Justin Fields, if Russell Wilson wins the job, and maybe on third down, maybe in running situations, you want to bring Justin Fields in, okay, I could buy that. But if we're talking about a true two-quarterback system where we're rotating guys in and out every 5 or 6 plays or every other series, I just don't think that can work in the National Football League.
I agree, Boog. I agree 100%. And I don't think they're going to need a two-quarterback system. The only two-quarterback system that they're going to have here is Russell's going to probably start the season, and then what's going to wind up happening is Justin Fields is going to take over probably halfway through the season, because this offense is tailor-made for exactly what he needs, I believe, to take his game to another level. I think you will see Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator, get back to being the Arthur Smith of old. He'll be the Arthur Smith who took a guy like Ryan Tannehill, who they put into the lineup down in Tennessee, and took Marcus Mariota out of there. And next thing you know, Ryan Tannehill is a top 5 thrower in the NFL. Why? Because they run the football, they change the launch points, they use play action pass, they use the dynamic running ability of the quarterback to their advantage, but it's just one quarterback. And the best runner on the field for Pittsburgh will be Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is going to take his game to another level anyway. So for me, yeah, it's going to be 2 quarterbacks. Is this not going to be a 2-quarterback system like we're talking about?
Here's the thing I'm going to push back on. What have you seen from Justin Fields to make you think that Justin Fields can come into Pittsburgh and do that? Because I haven't seen that, Lewis. We saw flashes of Justin running the football when he was like top 10 in the league in rushing, but that position is about throwing the football and distributing the football. What have you seen from him to make you think he can do that in Pittsburgh? Because I haven't seen that.
I've seen enough flashes to believe. Now, look, I understand. I'm one of those people who says all the time, flash players get coaches fired, because you keep thinking you can get it over and over again, and you can't. I've seen enough from him to believe this. I believe that Arthur Smith, look, I like Luke Getsy, okay? I like him. Luke Getsy is not Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith will take care of him. The run game combined with the play-action pass game will take Justin's game to a much more consistent another level. And when you combine that with his running ability, which will just be a supplementary part of the offense, look, this offense is going to be legit, because they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in football too. Let's not forget that.
I think Boog's right that Justin Fields is still to some extent a projection. But right now, at this time, so is Russell Wilson. You're projecting his ability to get back to what he was earlier in his career with Seattle. The last 2 years, he has not been anything close to that. He can say all he wants. It'd be nice to have 2 dynamic playmakers on the field, but he hasn't been one in quite a while. So I think if you're the Steelers and you're projecting what Justin Fields could possibly be versus Wilson becoming what he used to be, I know which one I'd rather bet on.
Yeah, but this is so exciting. So I guess maybe not if you're on the other side of the ball, but offensively, what does this look like to you with this particular trio in H-Town?
I mean, it looked like they should go out and dominate, Hannah, especially when you look at the premise that you make your biggest leap from a performance standpoint from year 1 to year 2. So let's apply that to the quarterback, C.J. Stroud. How good was he last year? He was unreal. He should be even better this year. Now you bring in Stephon Diggs to go with Nico Collins, who you just paid $24 million a year, and the most explosive guy was Tank Dell. They should be outstanding. Here's my one concern, guys. My one concern is not the 2 guys that were there, because Nico Collins and Tank Dell, they understand. They've been in the system. But when you bring a guy like Stephon Diggs in, and let's be honest, Stephon Diggs was a little bit of a problem in Minnesota. He was a little bit of a problem in Buffalo. How long do we think before he's a little bit of a problem in Houston if he's not getting the ball? That's my only concern. On paper, this looks phenomenal, Graz and Lewis, on paper. But if he's not getting the touches that he's used to getting from Kirk Cousins, from a Josh Allen, how soon does Stephon Diggs lash out? Because the chemistry on that team is the one thing that you cannot corrupt for a young team. Those guys are all in, and DeMeco Ryans has that here. You don't want to bring an outsider in, which is what they've done, and they've taken a chance to try to get to the next level. So, Graz, can Stephon Diggs step up and be what he didn't do in Minnesota or Buffalo, and that is a team player?
Right. Well, I mean, it is worth noting that, like, you know, for most of the time he was in those places, he was highly productive, and there were flare-ups, obviously. They've been well chronicled, and it's the main reason he's not in those places anymore. But remember, the Texans did something after they acquired Stephon Diggs. They adjusted his contract, so there's only 1 year left on it. So he has a great deal of incentive to perform at a high level, to put, to leave whatever issues that might have existed in previous stops behind him, and to give it, everything he's got for this year, because he'll be 31 in November. He's probably going to want one more big, relatively big free agent payday. And I think he probably wants to try and win the Super Bowl, and Houston's suddenly a place where people feel like they can go and gives him a shot to do that. So I think it seems like a mutually beneficial pairing, especially when you consider the state of the contract as they amended it.
Yeah, very savvy move, by the way, by Nick Caserio, one of many, starting with the drafting of C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, and then building upon the success of last season. Lewis, coming from the business side of football, as you do, just kind of lay out the big picture as Nick Caserio has built this team.
Yeah, he's done as good a job, Hannah, as you could possibly do. I mean, this organization has nailed it with the hiring, starting with the hiring of DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco Ryans hiring a guy like Bobby Slowick, who no one really had any idea how he would turn out in terms of being a leader and a play caller for a rookie quarterback who was second overall in C.J. Stroud. I mean, those are big time hits right out of the gate. And then when you bring a guy in like C.J. Stroud, who was able to get this offense up and running, at the direction of Bobby Slowick, and get guys like Tank Dell, and Nico Collins on the same page, and Dalton Schultz on the same page, and then you bring in a Stephon Diggs to supplement that. And, when you continue to add in the draft with a guy like Cade Stover, who you drafted in the 4th round out of Ohio State, to kind of make their tight end room even better, and you bring in Joe Mixon. And then on the defensive side, I mean, you see the guys that they have on that side of the ball, too, now with Will Anderson and Danico Autry and Daniil Hunter. And then I'll tell you what, here's another name. Just remember this name as we, run these clips of Stephon Diggs, and we should run those clips. But just remember this name. Remember the name Azeez Al-Shaair, who they signed from Tennessee, who was in San Francisco with DeMeco Ryans. We talked to Azeez last year before the Monday night game between Tennessee and Miami when he was with the Titans. There isn't a more respected guy in the NFL right at the command and control center at linebacker. And Azeez just absolutely adores DeMeco. Their leadership structure in Houston is rock solid. That's why, Boog, for me, I have no doubt that, look, Stephon will fall in line. He will fall in line because if not, he's going to have a whole bunch of alphas in his ear immediately. Don't mess up what we're doing down here. Go ahead and get yours, but fall in line because we've got something special, and you have to give Nick Caserio a lot of credit for all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I totally understand what you're saying, Boog, but it's very intentional, not just the skill piece, but the leadership piece. Caserio's been very intentional about putting those players there on both sides of the ball, and thank goodness Slowick came back. Right? That's a huge deal for the Texans.
How about that?